Hey everybody, Karthik Subramaniam over at Adi Schools. Welcome to our podcast. Got your email here. Hey Karthik, took your class about 8 months ago. I've been licensed and working for 4 months. I have a few clients that are with lenders and are getting their pre-qualification letters, fingers crossed. Congratulations, man. That's how everybody starts, working with buyers. That's the grind, that's the hustle, that's where everybody starts off. But on your next podcast, could you answer how to deliver the BBA? Thanks so much. Now, the BBA, of course, is a buyer-broker agreement. And basically, the buyer-broker agreement is a document with varying levels of commitment. Some buyer-broker agreements just say that I'll work with you as your real estate agent, helping you find a property, but you're still free to purchase a property through someone else. It's non-exclusive. Other buyer-broker agreements are exclusive. And in fact, the most, I don't want to use the word severe, but the most committed form of a buyer-broker agreement actually is one that says, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, don't cheat on me. If you sign this and you buy a house through someone else, you will owe me the commission I would have otherwise received. Sign here. Now, this is the most committed form of a buyer-broker agreement because it links the buyer to you for some period. Now, I talk about this in our real estate class also, but a lot of the time, candidly, when I tell people in the real estate class that there's a buyer-broker agreement that says that the buyer commits to buy a house through you if they buy a home at all. And if they don't, there's a penalty where the buyer might end up paying you the commission. Now, you might know that typically how much money does the buyer pay in a commission? Well, the buyer doesn't pay a commission, frankly. Remember, it's the seller who pays the commission. The seller will pay the commission for both their agent and the buyer broker. So a buyer typically is not paying a commission in a real estate transaction, but there is a form of a buyer-broker agreement that would put that responsibility on a buyer if they end up buying a house through someone else during the term of the agreement. Now, a lot of people that take this real estate class through us have bought and sold houses before, and I often hear this in class, I would never sign such a form. I've bought 5 houses before and I never signed a buyer-broker agreement, nor would I. Now, I understand that position maybe as a consumer, but remember, as a real estate agent, we don't have a product that we're selling. As a real estate agent, we do not have anything but our time. And if somebody wastes your time, that is the equivalent of someone eating at your restaurant and not paying you. Right? Because a restaurant serves food. If someone eats your food and doesn't pay you, in the real estate world, that's the same thing. Someone has used your time and ultimately bought a property through someone else, which is why, by the way, as you build your real estate career, you're going to want to focus on having listings, not having buyers. You want to focus on listings because when you control listings, you control the inventory. But as a newer real estate agent, you might not have the luxury of only dealing with sellers. All of us, when we start, generally end up working with buyers. But knowing that, do you think it's ever happened that a buyer has used a particular real estate agent to look at property, but ultimately bought a house through someone else? Of course, that's happened to a real estate agent before, where they spend time working with the buyer, showing that buyer a bunch of property, yet that buyer ultimately buys a property through someone else. Well, how do you protect yourself in that case? Well, the buyer-broker agreement then becomes relevant. Now, here's one thing to think about as I give you a potential script for this. Now, do you think some buyers think that they have done their real estate agent a favor by buying a house through them? Of course. I've had people that take the real estate class that say, I bought a house through a real estate agent. My agent made $22,000 off me, and I can't believe it. I want to get my license and do it myself. It's only in real estate where the client maybe thinks that they've somehow done their agent a favor by buying a house through them. I just got my teeth cleaned here for my 6-month tooth cleaning. Do you think I got back in my car and said, man, my dental hygienist was so lucky to have cleaned my teeth? I'm going to get a haircut tomorrow or maybe the next day. I'm not going to get back in my car and look at my haircut and say, my barber was so lucky to have cut my hair. I don't look at our audio guy, Chris, and say, he was so lucky that he got to record this podcast. Whoa, that's not the finger I wanted to see, buddy. I don't know. That's easy there, pal. But the point is that it's only in real estate, of course, where somehow the buyer thinks that they've done their agent a favor by buying a house through them. So here's how I would approach the buyer-broker agreement. You're sitting down with your buyer at your initial buyer consultation. You're trying to figure out what their needs are, what their budget is, whether they've been pre-approved by a lender. You're getting all those formalities out of the way. Then you tell the buyer, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, buying a house is a huge decision. I understand that. And the truth is, I might not be the right real estate agent for you. Now, when I myself as your agent am telling you dead in the eye, hey, look, I might not be right for you, doesn't that shift the power dynamic a little bit? Of course, right? Mr. Buyer, I might not be right for you. But let's just try to work with each other for 3 weeks. Because the truth is, if I can't find you something in 3 weeks, maybe I'm not the right real estate agent for you, and you should look somewhere else. Now, by the way, just to break the role play for a second so you have some clarity on this, the only reason I'm doing it for only 3 weeks is if you don't buy a house in 3 weeks, I'm not so sure I want to work with you anyway. I don't want to get to this weird place where you and I hang out on Saturday from 1 to 4 looking at condos in Fullerton. That's not my idea of a good time. So, Mr. Buyer, back in the role play here, Mr. Buyer, let's try to work with each other for 3 weeks, because the truth is, if I can't find you something in 3 weeks, maybe I'm not the right real estate agent for you, and you should look somewhere else. Now, don't worry though, Mr. Buyer. This doesn't say that you have to buy a house in 3 weeks. You don't. All this says is if you do find something you love in the next 3 weeks, we'll work on it together. And don't worry about paying me anything, Mr. Buyer. You don't owe me anything. I'll work that out directly with the seller. So again, we're reminding the buyer it's short term, number one. Number two, they're not committing to actually making a purchase in the next 3 weeks. And again, best of all, what are you going to charge them? Nothing. You get paid by the seller. So that's how I would formulate the case for the buyer to sign your buyer-broker agreement. Remember, it's only for a short term, number one. Number two, they're not actually promising to buy anything in that period. And number three, what are you going to charge them? Nothing, it's free. Now, what I love about this email, by the way, that I got from this former student is that the former student is seeing the value in the buyer-broker agreement. Because a lot of real estate agents, quite frankly, are frightened to bring this up to a buyer because they are worried it might scare them away. But trust me, I would rather have you tell me now that your mom's a realtor and that your daughter's a realtor, your son's a realtor, and that you might also be looking at property with them, because I want to know that up front. Then I, as the real estate agent, can make the decision as to whether or not I want to risk showing you property, knowing your best friend from college is also a local real estate agent. So now a lot of you guys listening to this podcast might disagree. I'd love to hear your comments in the comments section, but a lot of people are, again, frightened to ask the buyer to sign such a document because their position is that it forces some decision, but that's good that it forces a decision. It's good that it forces a decision mainly because you'll know right up front from the beginning whether or not that buyer is willing to commit to you at no charge. Love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube. I would love to connect with you on Instagram and get to know you on and offline. Do you usually sign a buyer-broker agreement? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.